So the blog is going great, and my health seems to be improving. The chiropractor and I have been continuing to move that atlas back over to the middle, where it's supposed to be aligned up with your head. It keeps sliding back to the right, but I've been able to push it somewhat myself. Now we're getting a lot of movement down below that in like the C2, C3 block, and hopefully that'll do the same type of thing. Stay for shorter periods of time at first and longer periods of time, hopefully, as we progress. I've still been making basically no progress with the regular medical community, which is kind of hard to believe, but nevertheless. And I have had a lot more mental clarity. I've had more energy, but it still fluctuates. Like today, and the last couple of days have seemed really weird. Like I tried to write yesterday, and I just couldn't think things through. It's an issue that's not a psychological issue. It's some sort of physiological functioning of an organ called the brain. I had one doctor say it probably is otherwise. He's an idiot. But nevertheless, so there's something still going on there. I think maybe it has more to do with the fact that we're getting the Atlas in place a little better, and the C2, C3 block is becoming out of place more. It's hard to exactly say. It would be nice to meet someone that knew the anatomy and the physiology well enough to look at images and say, oh, there's pinching on this here. But I believe either that person doesn't exist, which I believe probably isn't true. I think they're just very rare, which means I'm never going to meet them. You would either have to have blackmail or a lot of money. One of the two to end up meeting that person, possibly with some sort of weird luck. Uh, Probably luck called blackmail or money. And since I'm never going to meet that person, it's kind of irrelevant to keep looking into all the details of the physiology because I'm probably not going to fully understand it. I understand a decent amount, enough to know somewhat of what I'm dealing with. But as my mental clarity increases here, because in general, even though it goes up and down, it's on an increase. It seems like the writing I found I've made a little bit of money off writing, not too much. And it's amazing. Like one article will make 0 cents, a couple articles made 1 cent. I think one article made 2 cents. One article made like $1.70 or something. I've had one article make like $70 and another article make like $130. It's on Steemit, so it's kind of weird. Half of it's supposed to be available in American money fairly soon. The other half is like a 13-week process to get out. I don't quite understand it. I've looked it up a bunch of times. Apparently, no one fully understands it. But nevertheless, it's cool. It's especially cool just crossing the line of getting paid for something that I wanted to write. I've met a few people and interacted with a few people online and in person that have made money off writing and made livings off writing. But most of those people don't write what they want, and a lot of them don't write under their own name. I've met one woman that has done a lot of ghostwriting books. Actually, I've met several women, only women so far, that have done a lot of ghost writing. And I don't really want to do ghostwriting for someone else, and I don't really want to write like business articles or news articles. At that point, it's kind of like what's the point? You're just doing another boring, not fun job. So I want to write the stuff that I want to write, and crossing that line, stepping over that line of making some money at something that I wanted to write completely arbitrarily on my own choice is really cool. So I'm going to keep advancing in that direction because in the end, if you're trying to establish some goal, something out in the future, and you want to reach this for whatever motivation because you want it, essentially, it's an unknown. No matter what it is, it's an unknown. Some people are certain right? They haven't like they're known I'm going to reach this, but that's untrue, right? They're lying to other people and themselves until they actually reach it, and then they say, "Well, I knew the whole time," which is true. But in actuality, it's still an uncertainty out here in the future. And the actions that you take, if you're trying to reach some sort of stable state or attain this thing out in the future that you want, if the actions you need to take to get there are things you don't want to do, which, I mean, part of that basically has to exist. There's some people that they start making decent amounts of money and they outsource basically everything they don't want to do. So it is possible to do that. But nevertheless, if you have something that you want out in the future, but almost everything leading up to it is stuff you don't want to do because the end is uncertain, and we can't even, right? People try to use like Bayesian logic and stuff like this. We can't even actually apply a statistical number to this, especially because it's a case, right? It's not a class probability. It's a single case. And so you could spend very realistically a ton of time doing all the stuff you don't want to do and not attain this thing. Now, that's all valuable activity for lessons learned, and you can change the meaning at the end. You can do a lot of stuff with it. But if you have an alternative, something you really just like to do in the present now, that also, you could have a goal for it, but also it's leading towards some sort of future unknown state. But your return on it is now. I mean, you're getting a return immediately. If you're doing something that you don't value, you don't want to do, to attain something that you do want, something that you do value, it either has a delayed return, which is hard to do for people because we have a time preference, right? Any good out in the future, if it's the same good and it's closer in time, we have a preference for it. That comes from von Bawerk. Bawerk ends up being his last name from the Austrian School of Economics. So that's an important thing to realize. But if you have a direct alternative of doing something that you like this whole time, that you value this whole time, building up to that uncertain future, then the payoff, I would assume in most cases, if you were able to run that 100 times, which you're not because it's a case and not a class, it would end up being much more beneficial most of the time to go with the one that you like now, which is very interesting. It's a little bit of a different way of thinking about it. It's oddly phrased and probably not super clear. Nevertheless, that is what I've been thinking about more recently. And writing is like the first thing I've done that I've made money off of, even though it hasn't been very much, that I just enjoy. Like I would do it without the money, but I also made some money. So that is hard to beat. There's a lot of other stuff that I think are pretty fulfilling, like teaching English online. I think it's really fulfilling to see the progress that the students are making over time. I've one student I've had for 8 months now, and it's amazing. He knew chess from playing his mom and dad, and now I've been teaching him a little bit at the end of each lesson, and he just flies through his books and comprehension questions, rhyming, making sense. He flies through all the exercises we have so he can get to playing chess. So it's a great motivator. And then, second of all, we're going to have him beating his parents here pretty soon. I think he's like 10 or something. He's getting there. And I think the first two games I beat him in 4 moves, and then I beat him in 5 moves. I might have beat him in like 7 or 8 moves the next game. And now even though we played pretty fast, I think our last one took us like 10 minutes. So we're spending more and more time on that. I have to play with that a little bit. But the point is, it's very fulfilling to see that progress. It's very cool. I like it. But I wouldn't do it for free. I would do it for a low amount of pay because I value it, but I wouldn't do it for free. The writing, on the other hand, especially the memoir stuff and the fiction stuff, so I guess both in the major categories that I would be writing in, are super interesting. Like I just started doing them for free, found out that you can submit to Steemit and possibly make some money, and then did. So, yay, great. That works out good. And as I've explored it more, I've realized there's sites like Patreon where people can fund you, almost like an old patron system where the royals, the nobles would pay for an artist to live essentially to make art so they could do that. And we have that system with the internet. That's a real possibility. And I've joined some online groups and stuff where people are making decent livings, even though they're not like hugely successful writers, but they publish their own books and they make a living doing their own writing. So super interesting and definitely the direction I want to pursue. My biggest fear right now is all the health stuff. I feel like at any time something could go horribly wrong. I can lose a day or a couple of days pretty easily, and just kind of out of the blue. It's a really weird state to be in. And overall, it's kind of developed like a chronic fear. I kind of have a chronic fear of doing like something new or something adventurous because what if something goes wrong? What if right? It's like it's kind of a weird state. I haven't fully really experienced it before where I'm kind of really afraid to take risks right now, which is weird because I also don't have a super good way of playing it safe. because because I'm not sure I can really just go get a normal job and show up 40 hours a week consistently. Definitely I can't show up 40 hours a week mentally, but even physically it might not work out, but I'm getting closer to that. So it's weird. Bunch of interesting new experiences. Life is just a series of new experiences, even though it's usually repetitive. Our perspective changes, which changes the entire context. And content is super important, just like in writing, right? The content is really important, but the context is more important. And our perspective on life provides a lot of that context. So I found my perspective changing my context a lot recently in good ways of realizing what I want to do and what I enjoy, stuff like that. So some of it's been really good, but also in bad ways, like kind of experienced the chronic fear. I've had a lot of chronic doubt in my life, but I haven't had so much the chronic like fear of this ominous feeling of something's going to go horribly wrong. That's a weird experience, and we'll see what I do there. And obviously, I have to get some sort of money coming in, probably not from my own writing to fuel my own writing. So we'll see exactly how I do that. I have a few ideas, but I'm not sure which way to go off it, and we'll we'll see what happens. And I'm not sure if if I am any good at the writing stuff, if I'm going to be any good at the writing stuff, but it's a skill I'm going to work on developing, which is cool. And then I've been documenting it on the blog. Like, here's my thought process as I was trying to write this, which I think is going to be really cool to look back on, and I think it'll be really interesting. So that is the update for now. A lot of different stuff going on, and I just had a few mental hiccups. I guess you would call them a little odd odd moments where I wasn't thinking clearly. I couldn't think of what I wanted to say next. When I was at my Toastmasters group speaking today, someone actually noticed them because I try to act really fine, right? There's no point in acting not okay. Even if you're not okay, you might as well act okay. And he pointed them out after the meeting, which was really unusual because it's hard to tell sometimes if other people are noticing when you're not functioning at your best. And I thought, wow, overall, I think I'm functioning a lot better, but other people are still noticing that I'm not functioning very well, which I can tell that I'm not functioning that good still. So we'll see how far I can take it, but hopefully I make keep making more progress on the physical side and organically with my brain, which a lot of times I call mental. Maybe I'm confusing the doctors because mental is the operation of an organ. Nevertheless, I seem to be making progress. I'm going to keep working on making progress, and we will see how the uncertain future turns out.